It's fiesta time in Mexico City as the battle for the Drivers' Championship hots up between Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris. Who will come out on top in this high altitude circuit? Do McLaren need to start implementing team orders if they're going to take the fight to Verstappen? And we finally get round to answering your questions as we take a look ahead of the Mexico Grand Prix. We'll discuss all that and more in this episode of Inside the Piranha Club. I'm Rebecca Clancy.
And I'm Ben Hunt.
Lots
and we're
to
not
go
in
at.
Mexico.
And we're not in Mexico. Where are you, Ben? If you're listening to this and not watching it on our YouTube channel, which you can do at Inside the Piranha Club. Oh, look at that for an early plug. Ben is sat in front of a beige concrete wall.
Yeah. Well, yes, indeed it is.
But
beige
it's very
wall.
sunny.
It is quite warm here. It's nice in Zante. I'm in Zante for a few days, so yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. But Mexico City, a place we both know well. We've been there many, many a time. For me personally, I absolutely adore the city. I know people who haven't been there, and some who have, could consider it dangerous. I've never felt afraid there or had anything even close to resembling anything dangerous happen to me. I've done lots and lots of the touristy stuff. I just adore everything about it. We are incredibly lucky that we get to go at the time of year around Halloween, Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead. We got to go to the festival, the parade that they now do into Zocalo Square, which, believe it or not, and I didn't believe this initially, I had to look it up, only exists because of the James Bond film, Spectre. They did it in the film and now they do it in real life. So you basically have to sneak out from quali early. I mean, you finish quali, you file as quickly as humanly possible, and then you get back into the city to watch the parade. And it's just absolutely brilliant. Everything about it. I just adore Mexico City.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's one of those ones.
And I'm not getting paid by the tourist board, by the way.
It's a feel good race. I think the paddock's a good one. Circuit's good. The passion of the fans and the volume of fans and spectators that turn up. It's chaotic. I think that's probably the only thing, isn't it? The traffic can be a little bit of a nightmare, but I love that mix of, well, actually it's all old, isn't it, in the historic centre.
Yeah, unless you're staying over
buildings.
in Polanco where it's all lots of new and shiny.
Yeah, but that whole ruggedness is great.
It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And the altitude, as I mentioned, that plays a massive part coming into this weekend because it's low air density. It basically takes away any aerodynamic advantage any team might have. They have to put on their highest downforce package to try and have any kind of downforce. It's much harder to cool the brakes. It's just a really challenging weekend. And I have run this track many a time, and I can say that even just running it, which takes about half an hour if you're me, that is hard work.
Yeah, it is. It's also the engine, isn't it? There's a knock-on effect with the engine performance as well. So it's always a bit of a variable, and that's what I've quite like. We say it's a variable. There's always one team that seems to do okay there, but it does tend to throw up a little bit of a story every time we go there. Just the altitude and which teams trying something new to conquer that. Yeah, no, it's a great race. It's a really good fun vibe. And it's quite nice. It comes after Austin, which is obviously a big high-intensity race in terms of sponsor and activations and, just generally lots going on.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to follow it up with Mexico.
It's two high-energy races, isn't it? Particularly important given we are now heading into round 20 of 24. Yeah. So actually these two races do come at a very good time to kind of keep the energy levels up. You mentioned, Ben, about it being good for one team in particular. That team is Red Bull. It is Max Verstappen, the most successful driver around this circuit in Mexico City. He's won it 5 times. Okay, let's get into it. Title fight. He's absolutely in it, as we have been saying for quite a long time. Welcome to everyone else who's joined the party finally. He's cut his deficit from 104 points to Oscar Piastri to just 40. We have 5 races to go and 2 sprint races over the course of 7 weeks. It is going to happen very quickly, and he has all the momentum. His quotes coming into this weekend are absolutely terrifying if you're Piastri and Norris. He is talking about how he has all the momentum. He's talking about how he needs a perfect weekend every weekend to win the championship. Well, just add that to the list of things that he's more than capable of. You look at Austin, he won everything. now coming into Mexico, this is very much his track. It's going to be a really, really intense 7 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's two things. I mean, he's been there and done it and knows what it takes to win a championship. And of course, that experience is all in his pocket. And Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris haven't got that in Formula One. So, it's really interesting. He knows the dynamic and he knows that he's going to be putting pressure on these guys. And you wouldn't blame him for doing so, because we've seen the mistakes that McLaren are making, not just the two drivers, but also the team operationally as well. Whether they keep dillying and dallying about team orders, he can exploit that weakness to his maximum effect. And yeah, I expect to see quite a punchy Max in the press conference and his comments coming out in the attempt to try and unsettle the two McLarens that haven't been there. And yeah, it's going to be really, really, really interesting. And just the other side of it, of course, is how Norris and Piastri respond to that attitude. Will they just brush it off? They've tried not to react, but I just can't help but feel that they will in some way.
I want to talk about Norris quickly within this title fight, because I feel a little bit like he's going under the radar. He's 14 points behind Piastri now. A lot of people have written him off. We did a poll recently on our Instagram and he got about 2 votes of the 3 who would win the championship. We talked a lot about Verstappen, how he's outscored both McLarens in the last 4 races. Norris has outscored Piastri in the last 4 races. He is chipping away at a rate that is quick enough that he can win this championship. And I feel like he has gone under the radar, which is exactly where he wants to be. Of course, most of the pressure is on Piastri. He is leading the championship. Verstappen is coming at them, we all know that, and that is very much the narrative coming into this weekend. And Norris is kind of the middleman, I mean, quite literally in this trio sandwich. Club sandwich?
Maybe.
And he's going about his business. You've spoken about it before, Ben, his different approach to the weekends. And actually, for me, yes, all the momentum is with Verstappen, but I think Norris is actually doing a very good job at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he is doing a good job. There's been races where he hasn't capitalised, but is that on him? Is it on the team? Baku, he should have really capitalised on Piastri's errors there, but he's still doing enough to eat into that lead. I mean, look, at the moment, I would say that he's probably the most likely to win this championship purely based on his experience from last year. I think
you think Norris is the front runner now to win the championship?
Yeah, I was surprised at the poll, because I thought that while momentum is with Verstappen, and I keep getting lots of messages saying he's going to win it, and I do think that there's potential. I still think that at this moment in time, I think Norris is probably in with the best shout. I think that he's got enough to get it over the line. He can learn from his experience last year, which took it down to the final race going up against Max. His words to an interview that I did with him, he said, "I know what it takes to win a world championship now." And I think part of that is the approach, but then maybe it's also when it comes down to the crunch time, maybe we will see a different Lando Norris. I'm really surprised by that poll. People writing him off. Yes, Piastri's got more points at the moment. Yes, Verstappen's got the momentum, but I think the man in the middle has the real potential to win that championship.
Absolutely. Our poll actually said 70% voted for Verstappen and 30% voted for Lando Norris. So quite a difference there. Obviously, the rest going for Piastri. 40 points, which is the gap between Piastri in first currently and Verstappen in third, is actually the fewest points that have separated the top 3 drivers since 2012. So it's not actually that big of a stretch. And now we have those 2 sprint races as well. So as we've mentioned on the pod, we want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. I think you guys generate brilliant debate, and we're always very grateful that you send us messages on our Instagram, particularly at Inside the Piranha Club. And I want to ask this question from Davies Variety. He says, should McLaren back one driver? And a brilliant question, I think. Would McLaren drivers prefer to see Max win the championship rather than the other side of the garage? So let's start with, should McLaren be backing one driver over the other?
It's really hard to say that, isn't it? Because I've just said that I personally think that Norris has the best chance of winning this championship at this moment in time. So that's where my judgment is. But of course, you've got Piastri that's leading the championship and has performed really well all season. So I think McLaren have made a rod for their own back, in a sense that they can't back out of this now. They've had this open policy of trying to manage the two drivers. How can they now, at this crunch stage of the season, turn around and say, right, we'll favour one over the other? I don't think it's possible for them to do that. The reason being is that both of them are signed up for next year as well, and potentially the year after. So you can't create that wedge between the drivers in your teams. It's a problem which they've made themselves. Unfortunately, they've got to stick with it. I don't think that we will see any stepping in. I think that they will allow them to race, and that's the way that it should be. I don't think that they should be meddling, and that's where it went wrong initially, is where I think about it. The second point, what was the second point about?
Well, let me just come back on that, because Andrea Stella, the team principal at McLaren, has come out and categorically said, no, we will not be favouring either of the drivers. I agree with you. I think that's the right approach. While they're both mathematically in this fight, they should be allowed to race and fight each other. I do think they need to stay out of it a bit more. I think they need to let the drivers do their job. They need to let each side of the garage do their job. And I think whatever Papaya Rules is, which has become a bit of a meme, let's be honest, I think you sit down on a Sunday morning and you say, look, lads, you go racing. It's fair, but it's also sport. Things may be fair. They may be unfair. We're not getting involved anymore. There's no team orders. What will be, will be. And I think that's how they have to go racing.
Yeah, that's what we want to see, isn't it, going into the final race? If it's a three-way battle going into Abu Dhabi, that's exactly what the fans want to see. And if McLaren is true to their word, then they will allow that to happen. So, yeah.
Second part of the question, I love this question. Would the McLaren drivers rather see Max Verstappen win the championship rather than the other side of the garage?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Can you imagine how gutting it will be to see your teammate win the World Championship and be called the World Champion for 12 months, after that event, knowing that that was your best chance to win the World Championship? Yes, absolutely, 100% they would prefer to have Max win it.
Okay, great question. Love it. Thank you very much. We also did a poll this week. We were talking to Simon Lazenby about his new book, Pressure. It's a great podcast if you want to go back and listen to it. It's on our Spotify and also on our YouTube. We asked the question, would George Russell be leading the championship if he was in a McLaren? And the background to this, to give you some context, was because George Russell has beaten everyone in the lower categories, mostly Norris, but he was F3 champion, he was F2 champion. He's had an unbelievable season this season, by far the best of his career. So slight, devil's advocate, we asked, would he be leading? It went pretty hardcore to the yes initially, but actually it finished 44% yes, 56% no. And Tom Dunnick came back and he said, let's not overreact. George is a good driver, but he's not a Verstappen, Hamilton or Schumacher level driver. Besides that, he performs well because there is no pressure. Lando also performed much better without the pressure. And I think that is a valid point.
Absolutely.
I wasn't categorising Russell in the camp of Verstappen, Hamilton or Schumacher. I actually don't think anyone else on the grid is in that region at all. I think Verstappen is in a class of one. He stands alone. We don't know who from the next generation will join them, but I don't think they're on the grid yet. But I do think Russell is very, very, very good, and he is definitely the next rung down from those guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the point is still valid, that if he was driving the best car this year, he would be winning the championship. And that doesn't, you can't extend that to every driver on the grid, by the way, for all those people saying, of course, the best driver is in the best car, etc. I think that Russell has that ability to get the best out of the package in the same way that Alonso, and again, people are going to be going, oh gosh, he's saying he's like Alonso, but there are certain drivers that have the ability to do the best in the machinery that they've got, and for others it has to be set up perfectly in order for them to deliver. And I think George is very versatile. He spent that time at Williams where he was sort of learning his craft, and I think that period of time in his career actually is now paying dividends now, because he's not throwing his toys out the pram so much. There's lots of knuckling down, getting stuff done, and he's just appreciating, I think, where he is. And I think he's become a more rounded driver as a consequence of that time at Williams. So yeah, I think that he would be leading the championship if he was in a McLaren this year.
I agree. And just talking very quickly of getting more out of the car than there is, I think Verstappen is one of those drivers, time and again, who gets more out of the car. Again, looking at his teammate Tsunoda. Thank you to Red Bull, by the way, for pointing this out in their Mexico preview. They put in one of teams put out these previews for every race. You go through them, they put out all these facts. One of their facts was that Tsunoda has scored more points in the last 3 races, 15 points, than he has in the rest of the season combined, which was just 12.
Wow.
Not sure why they highlighted that, but thank you very much. Arjunair 2000, also talking on the George point, makes a similar point about pressure. He says it's tough to say whether or not he'd be winning in the McLaren. We haven't seen George perform under pressure of winning the championship. Currently, only Max, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton have thrived in such situations. Yes, again, a very valid point.
Absolutely, yeah, don't disagree.
Okay, let's move on to Williams quickly, Carlos Sainz, because he has a 5-second penalty for this weekend. We touched on it briefly in our review of Austin. I don't like this hangover of penalties going into the next race. No. Carlos Sainz having a 5-second penalty coming into this race weekend. He was the last Ferrari winner. He actually won this race in Mexico this time last year. That is how long Ferrari have gone with a winless streak. Their longest ever winless streak was between Singapore 2019 and Bahrain 2022. You're still confident for Brazil?
Yeah, I am actually. I think that I saw quite a lot in the last race that gave me confidence in Ferrari getting a win before the end of this year, and in particular Hamilton winning. Yeah, I think that there's something about him at the moment. You know, he beat Leclerc last time out. I don't know, maybe it's the optimist in me. I just think that I can see a win on the cards, and it would probably come in Brazil. He always performs well in those races there. You know, he's got some sort of affiliation, and obviously is he an honorary Brazilian citizen?
Brazilian, yeah, he is, yeah. Yeah, he got given it a few years ago, didn't he?
And of course he loves that. So you know, I think he'll go well there. That's why I'm picking that over. You know, Austin was the other potential one, and he did go well there, but just not enough.
Sainz, I should just correct myself, by the way, it was a 5-place grid penalty, not 5 seconds. Apologies.
Yeah,
I haven't had much sleep the last few nights. Oh, yeah, it's silly, isn't it?
I think it's really harsh, and I hate that, like you said, the ones that roll over into the next race are really crappy penalties to give out, because it just mucks everything up. And you know, you only need a number of those, and the people who are coming into the race may not have watched, you know, the last one, and they could come and see qualifying, and their favourite driver could be starting on pole, and then all of a sudden they turn up on Sunday and he's not, and it's just messy.
Yeah, I don't like it. I agree. But I also do think this is going to be a good weekend for Ferrari. I think this is also a track that they like. I think they're coming off a strong weekend in Austin. Lewis Hamilton was very positive on Sunday night, which has been unusual for him this season. So I think they could be one to watch for this weekend as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, you know, the more cars in for the fight, the better in terms of the race, and also it has the implications in the Drivers' Championship as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Quickly to talk about any other business, Colton Herta has been confirmed as racing in F2 next season. He is the Cadillac test driver. I don't think you need to read between any lines. I think it's pretty obvious what's happening here. He's going into F2 to try and get his super license points, which are needed to then race in F1. So Cadillac can finally have their American driver.
Yep, makes sense, doesn't it? You know, quite a gamble from him. You know, going from IndyCar to the second tier of open wheel racing. You know, that's a big step backwards if you think about the two championships. But he's got the long game in mind, you know, and it makes sense for Cadillac. So let's see how he does next year. I mean, many expectations on him to win that championship, but it will be a good practice for him. Learn some of the tracks as well for the following year. So, yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense. I don't know who he would replace out of Perez or Bottas. Look, we're already talking about replacing them, so who knows?
Well, silly season has started really early. Crikey, O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally, I just want to talk about this Apple TV deal. This obviously came out over the weekend in Austin, that they have taken over the rights in the US. I personally think this is actually a very good deal, and I think Apple have come in with the right frame of mind. They haven't come in guns blazing. They haven't come in saying we're going to do this, this and this. They've come in and said, okay, look, we're going to take the world feed, which is basically the pictures that you see on screen are the same pictures that we see in the media center. They're the same picture that you see on every single broadcast. There's just one set of cameras and they go out to absolutely everybody. They're going to take that. They're going to take the F1 TV coverage, which you don't get in the UK, but you can pay for in the US. They're just going to kind of stick with F1 TV for the first year. They're going to slightly change a few things around for the second year. And then the third year, from people I've been speaking to, that's when they're going to starting to do their own shoulder programming, as in, their own segments pre and post race. And they're going to start kind of looking at the talent and playing around a bit more with who they've got. I mean, obviously F1 TV, they've got Laura Winter as their presenter. I personally think she's excellent. I'd be surprised if they didn't stick with her, but they do probably want another American voice. Obviously, they've got James Hinchcliffe, Jolyon Palmer. He's the British Formula One driver, or former Formula One driver. I think he's excellent. I think he's become a very, very good pundit. Alex Jakes on comms, also very good. I imagine there's a lot of people in the paddock currently trying to have conversations with Apple.
Yes.
But I think it's a really good deal, and I'm sure F1 are absolutely delighted because it's a 5-year deal worth about $750 million.
Yeah, it is, but it's also something which now forces Formula One to reevaluate their own output in F1 TV and to make the step up in collaboration with Apple. So it's kind of what was needed. I think that for so long they were reliant on other broadcasters to sort of lead the way, and they were being reactive, whereas now they're on the front foot. It's up to them to assemble a proper team together and start thinking about the way they present it. And then I go back to when I first started in Formula One in 2012, when you had Sky coming in for the first year, and then you had the BBC in the UK. And watching the trade-off between the way that those two went about their business was fascinating. Every opening sequence tried to outdo the other one, and every interview was trying to be better than the other side. And there was a competition, there was a rivalry, and it was really, really good to see. And I think that over the years, with Sky's dominance now in the UK and just generally F1 leaning on Sky quite a lot, I think that competitiveness went away and the quality of product also diminished a little bit. And I think that by having Apple come in with a fresh pair of eyes and investing in Formula One, then we should see some progress in how it's broadcast, and that's welcoming.
I'm absolutely fascinated to see what happens with the Sky deal. I think it runs until the end of 2028. I have a feeling that Apple could end up being a global streaming partner. I would be absolutely amazed if those conversations hadn't happened. Does Sky still have the rights, come the turn of the decade? I kind of suspect not. But then, like you say, Ben, it's much better when there's competition in the field. So
yes, for sure.
You don't want there to just be one broadcaster. That's not ideal. Although Apple being Apple, they're in a class of their own with phones, really. Although don't tell my husband that because he's a Samsung lover. But they do what they do very well. They're almost in competition with themselves, you could argue. So I'm really interested to see how this evolves, and I think it's a really, really good deal for F1.
I think ultimately, yes. That's the nail on the head. They're signing up a lot of circuits to long-term deals. I think that this TV deal is another long-term big financial boost. We also, keep talking sometime. Well, we've mentioned it a few times on this podcast about just when Liberty decide to cash in.
Yeah.
This marks another good opportunity, doesn't it? The coffers are looking good. All the long-term contracts are being signed. Formula One's looking massively profitable. And if I was Liberty, I'd be looking to get out at this stage. But then I'm terrible at gambling. Going
back to my many, many, many years as a business journalist, I actually think Liberty wouldn't be looking to step away now because it is so profitable. I think they bought the sport with debt. They can take a lot of money out of the sport, as it's not legal. A lot of companies do it. I think it's actually in such rude health that they're probably going to stick around for a while because these deals are just bringing in so much money. It's such a cash-rich business now. When we were in Austin, they're signing on. What was Austin signed up? Its extension through to 2034. These big tracks, they're paying big money. These, the fees to host races is only going up. So I don't know. I have a feeling John Malone and his team at Liberty, they'll be holding on to this for a bit longer.
Yeah, it gives them profile, doesn't it? I suppose, and significance. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but for me, it just feels like everything's being tidied up.
Yeah, I know pre-COVID, obviously when everything slightly took off with F1, they were certainly talking to the bankers about, getting a price and sort of testing the market to see if a sale was possible or not. I've not had any rumours of that since.
Post-COVID, there was a suggestion, wasn't there, about... do you remember when Mohammed Ben Sulayem came out with his comments talking about the valuation of Formula One? And then he got the naughty letter, stop talking about us.
And stop making up our valuation. I think 20 billion he put it at, didn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
And obviously Liberty have just bought MotoGP as well. So actually I think they are adding to the stable. I'm not sure they're quite finished with what they're doing here. Probably a longer term project than they were expecting.
Yes, probably. Yeah, probably. And I guess that's where we're at.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, that is it for us for this time, looking ahead to the Mexico Grand Prix and all our usuals, dalliances into other subjects. If you had enjoyed this podcast, please do rate and review us. Any questions, please do get in touch with us at Inside the Piranha Club. And I am delighted to say that the hours and hours of my time I spent yesterday, I have finally managed to set up a Facebook page for Inside the Piranha Club. Why they make it so difficult is beyond me, but it is done now, so you can find us on Facebook as well. And we will, of course...
You'll be doing MySpace soon.
It took, honestly, there's a good reason I haven't used Facebook for years. Anyway, so what am I doing? We're back on Monday with a review of the Mexico Grand Prix. Ben will still be on holiday in Zante.
Yes.
We can find out how sunburnt he's got. Make sure you got your Facts 50 on there. But until next time, have a great weekend and enjoy the race.
Thank you.